really excited to this video, but at the same time, you've also signed up to a really challenging class. So I'm really excited to see how this will go. I hope that we've got all the foundations so far. So if you haven't seen the other videos, take a look at the link and definitely go through all of the other videos before you look at this. So, society feels all the costs and benefits of a good or service. So I want to understand the social optimum and how the quantity in the social optimum is determined and the price of the social optimum is determined. To do that, I need to recap some of their definitions. So I have MSC and I have MSB. These are the two things that are going to be relevant for today's class. MSC is total cost to society of a firm producing an extra unit of the good or service. And remember, society is everybody. That includes the firm that made it, plus everybody else that got impacted with those costs. So it could include any third parties. MSB is the total benefits to society. Remember, that's when a consumer consumes a good because it's to do with demand. So all the benefits to society of consuming an extra unit of the good or service. Society, again, is everybody. It includes the consumer who consumed the good, but it includes the third parties. And MSC means marginal social costs, MSB, marginal social benefits. Watch out again, society is everybody. And I'm going to define the social optimum as the quantity where welfare is maximized. Welfare is that sense of well-being that society has, similar kind of to quality of life. And in economics, it's really important that we maximize that social welfare because we have really limited resources. So part of the challenge is we know we're going to run out of resources because we have unlimited wants and limited resources. And so it's really important to get the most out of those resources, knowing that we wouldn't be able to achieve the highest welfare forever. We can only maximize it. We can only do the best possible. So here I'm going to set out two key things to write down, and this is how I'm going to prove where the social optimum is. So essentially, if marginal social benefit exceeds marginal social cost, what this means is the 1 unit produced is adding more to the benefits that society has faced than the costs that society has paid. So therefore, you can think that society has gained in total from producing this good. Yes, some costs have been felt. I'm not saying that this overall is good for everyone. Some people are being harmed in this process, and firms. And at the same time, not everybody is benefiting, but what we're saying is that overall, the benefits outweigh the costs, and there is a net welfare gain. As a result, welfare is not maximized. Whenever you see MSB greater than the MSC, you see that welfare can still increase and isn't at the highest level yet. That's pretty cool. Okay, the next one is similar. If MSC exceeds MSB, this means that that unit added more costs, so more harm to society, than it benefited society. And overall, that means that this production or consumption of this good has actually made society worse off on average. It won't be true for everybody. Some people will still be benefiting from the social benefits they receive, but there's just a lot more costs, meaning that society overall has lost out. As a result, if you ever found yourself producing a good which had the MSB higher than the MSC higher than the MSB, then you know welfare could be higher by not producing this good. This good is bad to society overall. If you avoided producing this good, you would have avoided harming society. So it makes sense to avoid these units if you want to get the highest possible welfare. These two core concepts, write them down. We're going to see these on a graph. and therefore show to you where the social optimum is and how that relates to welfare. Here is a graph. I only have the marginal social benefit curve drawn. The reason why I only have these is because I don't need them to see the impact to society. Remember, the impact to society was all about the benefits to society and the costs to society. So just to make it a bit easier for ourselves, I'm only going to draw those two things, even though with merit goods, you'll also have an MPB, and with demerit goods, you'll have an MPB too. With positive production externalities and negative production externalities, you'll also have an MPC. I'm just ignoring them for now, just so we can focus on the social optimum. And here I'm taking an imaginary quantity. So let's say right now, for whatever reason, the output is Q1. Let's not focus on that too much. But let's pay attention to this next bit. Do you see that the units between Q1 and Q2, they're doing something really interesting. It's quite busy, the graph now, but all the units between Q1 and Q2, all of these had the benefits to society over here. I'll give you an example. So let's say this particular unit, Q3, that unit, you go up, you find where the social benefit is of that unit, you will find that the social benefit is all the way over there for this particular quantity. And the costs to that quantity go up to the MSC curve is that. So here we see that situation where the production of this unit in white, Q3, has added more benefits than costs to society. As a result, has created an overall welfare gain. And you can see that's true for all the units in this example between Q1 and Q2. All of these units had the benefits to society that were higher, all of these, than the costs of these units, all of this. Therefore, all of these could have added this much welfare if they were produced. As a result, we can infer that at Q1, welfare isn't the highest it could be. There's still more welfare to be gained because there's still units that can be produced where the MSB is higher than the MSC. So what I've written there is producing at Q1 would not maximize welfare. There are still units that could add more benefits than costs to society. Therefore, if you wanted to get more welfare, you should produce more. You should produce all of these units that have more benefits than costs. That's what I've summarized in that paragraph. So we can infer if production is where MSB exceeds MSC, let me write that, welfare is not yet maximized. Production should increase. Let's take a look at this other example. Here we have Q3. Do you notice that at Q3, using this particular unit as an example, I haven't explained how I found Q3 or anything, but this example at Q3, this particular quantity, the costs to society are here. That's where the MSC curve is. And the benefits to society are a bit lower here. Therefore, the costs for that unit has exceeded the benefits for that unit to society, and therefore this Q3 unit has actually caused this much harm to society. And in fact, all of the units between Q2 and Q3 are also harming society. This particular unit, again, had costs all the way over here. And then the benefits are lower. MSB is lower than the MSC in this case, and it's the same for all of these units. Therefore, by producing Q2 and everywhere until Q3, all of these instances of welfare loss have actually taken place. And what this means is at Q3, we know that society isn't as high as it could be. We know that it's better to avoid producing all these goods. You could have had a higher welfare at Q2. So producing at Q3 is not maximizing welfare. That's because the MSC is higher than the MSB. If you wanted to maximize welfare, avoid making these units. And here we have these two key conditions. Same as before, welfare increases if you produce units where MSB exceeds MSC, and you avoid units where MSC exceeds MSB. And this brings us to this really cool conclusion that if you want to maximize welfare, you should produce social optimum is where the MSB equals the MSC. That's the optimum, because if you are to the left of that, your benefits are higher than your costs, and you should produce more units. And if you are to the right of that, your costs exceed your benefits, and you've harmed welfare. And we can say for sure that the free market will never get to this social optimum. It's kind of like an imaginary outcome, the ideal outcome. It's kind of a comparison. What would be best for society if consumers hadn't been so selfish and looked only at the MPB? Or if firms had not been so selfish and looked only at the MPC? What would have happened if they looked at the MSC or looked at the MSB? We would have reached here. In a free market, we know that the MPC will actually only ever equal the MPB. So if there are any externalities present, QFM is going to differ from QSO, but hopefully this video has been able to explain to you why welfare is maximized at QSO and therefore why that's the social optimum. Bye!